And we're live. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the show. This is our Meaningful Monday podcast, live stream, video cast, whatever you want to call it. I'm Drew Biharel. Welcome to the show. Um, Today, we're talking about outsourcing and the value of outsourcing for small business owners, and what that's related to what we're talking about in terms of these folks who start businesses and they're just good at what they do, right? They're really good at business as at the topic area of where they're at, right? Whether you're a plumber, whether you're a roofer, or you're a coach or a consultant, or you're just good in your field, right? You're excellent at what you do, but you're not a great business person, right? Think about those kind of people in your life who you know, or maybe it's you who feels that way. You're excellent at what you do. You're great at you're great at what you do, but you're just not great at the business part of things. Does that make you a bad a bad plumber, a bad roofer, a bad coach? No, not necessarily. It means you're just not good at the business part of things, right? And that's a category a lot of people fall into. So if that's the case, then how do you account for that? How do you figure that out as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur? How do you account for that? Well, you outsource. Now, this can sound really expensive, right? It can sound like, oh my God, I don't want to spend money. I don't want to waste money. As an entrepreneur, I got to conserve, right? I got to save as much money as possible and not spend, right? Well, there's a difference between spending and expending, aka investing, right? What's an expenditure? What's an investment versus what's a spending situation, right? That's a distinction you got to be able to make as an entrepreneur. Welcome to everybody coming in and joining us today. We're talking about outsourcing and the value of outsourcing as an entrepreneur. And those folks in your life who are excellent at what they do and don't know how to run a business per se. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the way a lot of times we don't really know how to run a business. We were never taught how to run a business growing up or in school or in the trade school we went to, right? I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that there was a real actual how to run a business course out there. There are business courses, but does that tell you how to run a business? Not necessarily. They teach you how to be a really good employee in a business firm, but not necessarily how to run your own business. So as an entrepreneur, it's important to know how to save and how to understand what you want to do with investing money versus spending money, right? So what's the difference? Well, spending money is like, I'm going to buy a car that I think is awesome, that I really, love to drive. I want to enjoy driving my car. I want to really, show off that car. Now that could still be an expenditure. It could still be, you have to get from point A to point B, and there's nothing wrong with spending money that way. But as an entrepreneur, you look at that differently. Okay, what's a car that I can use that I can now take that and expense that car, right? That can be a business expense if I use it as a business expense. If I use it to go to see clients or drive from site to site, right? That's now a business expense because I'm using it for that purpose. That's an expenditure. That's an investment in that situation, right? Now it's also a depreciating asset, different conversation. But what are some investments you can make as an entrepreneur, right? You can invest in hiring someone to do your bookkeeping, right? You can invest in hiring someone to do your website. I'll tell you a quick story about websites. So I'm familiar with technology. I know technology pretty well. So I'm like, okay, you know what? In my first business I started back in 2010. I was like, let me save money and build my website. Okay. I don't want to pay someone money and waste money by paying someone to do a website when I can do one myself, right? Pretty simple enough. So I proceeded to spend like 60 hours building this website. All right. Like back and forth, like Googling stuff, figuring out how to do X, Y, and Z, how to build stuff and how to actually make the plugins all work together, how to format the homepage so it looks really good. What are the best practices for UX and UI and that kind of thing? What are some things I really want to do to make this site the best site possible, right? The best site I could make anyway. 60 hours, but I saved money, right? I didn't waste money. I didn't hire someone else to spend money on that. They didn't get me by getting my money. But then you look back now and I look at that time and I'm like, damn, 60 hours, right? That's such a waste of time when I could have spent a total of 5 hours, maybe if that, talking with a website developer, right? To have them do the website, maybe take them 10, maybe 20 hours at the most, right? But it's an investment in that situation. That would be an investment. Now, if I'm taking that 5 hours, that if I build myself, let's say back then I built myself at 120 an hour, right? Let's say I built myself at 120 an hour times 60 hours. All right. That's $6,000 roughly. Let's round down. Let's say it's less. $6,000. Okay. That's how much that's how much I essentially paid in time to build that website. If you take in your hourly rate as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. All right. Because that's how you got to factor in these kind of things. Those are the calculations you want to make for yourself as a business owner. How much time is it going to cost you? And then how much money that translate into, right? In that situation, $6,000. Now, how much would it cost me to pay someone else to do it? Probably $1,200, maybe $2,000, worst case, right? That is a $4,000 additional payment that I made to build it myself, right? Whereas in the situation, that's 5 hours additional, right? That's $500. Let's say again $600 additional there, right? Because I just doesn't make sense now. Looking back at myself, I want to kick myself. I want to be like, dude, why'd you do that? Why'd you waste that kind of money on that? Right. But again, it's not the mindset I was in, right? It's not the mindset that you have when you walk into this. You want to save money. You want to conserve as much as possible, right? You're in this fear. You're letting scarcity drive you. You're letting fear drive you, as opposed to abundance, which again is not lying to yourself. You're not saying you have all the money in the world, but you're saying I'm going to invest my money intelligently because I'm going to get a return on this investment. That's the difference between investment and expenditure. Expenditure is done. That money's spent, right? Maybe it's a lesson, maybe it's not, whatever it is. You spent the money on something, it's gone, and you can't get that money back. An investment is where you spend $5 and you know there's a potential to get $25, $30, $100 back. That's an investment. That's what a website would be, right? Anything invested in your business, Hachi is going crazy right now because probably someone's delivering something. That's great. Thank you for that. He agrees with me. That's what he's saying. I'm just translating for you. But when you're talking about an expenditure, right? Expenditure has no return on investment. Okay. And if expenditure has no possibility of you getting that money back or any of that money, much less just some of it. Take the really fancy sports car that you want to buy, right? If you want to sell that car back, you'll get some of that back. That doesn't make it an investment, right? But if I told you that car could get you 5 times its value, then that now becomes an investment, right? That's the difference between an investment and a expenditure. And as an entrepreneur, you got to be able to understand the difference between those two things as a business owner, right? You're not just trying to save money just to save money. You're trying to save money intentionally. Do I need this, or is it an investment? Do I need this right now? Is it an investment I can leverage? Can this person's services over here maximize my business somewhere, right? If I hire a website developer, if I hire a bookkeeper, if I hire a CPA, these are things that I would otherwise spend a lot of time, aka a lot of money, to develop and do on my own, and that's essentially a waste of time in that situation. Why would you waste that time? Why would you do that when you can take that money that you have that you can get back because you have a business, right? You now have a business, and all those expenditures, those investments that you're making are also tax deductible now. Why do they make them tax deductible? Because they're business expenses. They're things that you need to run your business. Now you can still be an amazing coach, an amazing plumber, an amazing, roofer, or anything, any of those skilled trades, right? You can be an amazing any of those things and not know how to run a business. That is absolutely normal, absolutely okay. You can also be one of those things and still know how to run a business, right? I always said some of the best marketers in the world make shitty coaches and vice versa. Just because someone is great on Instagram or has an amazing presence on Google and all these things doesn't mean that they're great at anything they do other than marketing. That means they're great at marketing, right? I saw a website last week. I network a lot, right? So I met this marketer, someone who claimed that they were a marketer, and I saw their website, and their website looked like it was designed in 1993. Okay, and yes, that was pre-big internet days. I said that intentionally because it was built in HTML. All right, now for those of you who don't know what HTML is, and it still is in some sites, but basically it's the basis of like websites way back in the day. All right. It was not what you see nowadays. Most sites you see nowadays, like WordPress, Ruby, all these different really advanced, cool looking websites. But this site was built, God knows when. It's not modern at all. This is just a wall of text, and it's just not something you want to look at. It's not going to give you a good feeling when you go to that website. You're not going to be like, I want to hire this marketer. You're going to say, I actually don't want to hire this marketer because they don't know what the hell they're doing. All right. So that person doesn't know how to actually market themselves. So why would I ever work with them? They may be great at talking. They may be a great salesperson, because if you can make a sale with that website as a marketer, then you're a great salesperson. Hire them as a salesperson, right? Think about its skills and how the skills translate into what you're doing. Does one skill equal another, right? Does that mean if you're a great marketer, does that mean you are a great coach? If you are a great roofer, does that mean you are a great dog, for example? No. If you're a great dog, does that mean you're great at keeping quiet when your owner is talking on a live stream? Obviously not, because he's not doing that right now. So ultimately, you want to be able to understand where your skills lie and where they don't lie. All right. And that's a really tough conversation to have sometimes, because as a business owner, you want to be able to wear all the hats, right? And be like, I wear like 15 different hats, right? We get so proud of like wearing 50 different hats. Like it's a good thing. I mean, it's great if you can do those things all effectively, but if you can't do them all effectively, then you become a bottleneck. Do you want to become the bottleneck in your own business? I don't want to be, and I have been for a while, right? I mean, in certain ways, I was the bottleneck for my own business for a long time, because I refused to look at things that I couldn't do effectively and say, I'm going to hire someone to do this because I wanted to save money. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time. So the time that you can invest as that business owner in doing the thing that you want to do, like for me, it's coaching. If I could spend more time coaching clients or free up my time to spend more time coaching clients, that's a win for me, because that time is money I'm getting coming in. Whereas this money building a website, or the money marketing, or the money doing my books, CPA work, or whatever tax work, is not money I'm going to get paid on. So why would I prioritize that over money that I'm getting paid on? Why not hire someone? I'm not saying hire the most expensive person in the world, but hire a person that knows what they're doing, to do what they're trained and skilled at, what they're able to do. Get them to do that thing that they're experts at, and you do the thing that you're expert at, right? Do the thing that you love to do. Why waste time doing other things like that? I think that's a trap a lot of business owners fall into. And if folks have any stories they want to share, feel free to jump in the chat and let us know. But let me know, and we'll talk about it, and we can talk more in detail about that. But it's a really common trap that we fall into, because we don't think about things in those terms. We're thinking about things as an employee still, right? We're thinking about things, we've been trained from birth, essentially, to think about life as an employee, not as a business owner, not as someone who's responsible for their own future, right? You're thinking about things as an employee getting a paycheck. Your time is salaried, so it doesn't matter how much time you spend on a task, right? As long as you get it done by the due date. And that due dates are set by your boss. Whereas as a business owner, you set your own due dates. You have to be responsible for yourself. You know what your priorities are, or you need to know what your priorities are. You have to be able to prioritize your own work. Whereas again, in the company is telling you what to do. The company is prioritizing all your work for you. So to make that mindset shift, it's a really big deal. It's tough sometimes. It can be really tough to shift from the mindset of an employee making purchases and spending money versus a business owner having expenditures over here, but also being able to invest their money, making smart investments. And it doesn't mean that you're just buying stock market or buying real estate. Investments can be in services, can be in other things as well, things that you build for your business. This mic was an investment, for example, right? The camera I'm on, the computer that I got, those are investments, because they enable me to do my work, right? They enable me to do what gets me money. And because I'm able to do that more effectively, more efficiently, now I'm able to get more money. So they essentially offset their costs. Now it's a little bit different with those kind of things, because it's harder to calculate the return on investment, because there are more calculations involved. But something more simple, like for example, hiring a website developer, or hiring a coach, or hiring a bookkeeper, or someone like that to do the task that they're really good at, that takes that off your plate, that allows you to have the free time to build your business yourself and really do the business you want to do. That's actually that's a little easier to conceptualize, because it's more direct. It's one-to-one, hour to hour, right? So think about in your business, or the business you want to start for yourself, or the ones you've already started. Where are you becoming a bottleneck for yourself? Where are you turning yourself into that bottleneck, right? Either because you don't want to spend money, or because you're being stubborn in general, or because you're maybe just not aware of it. You're not aware of people who can do work that might be able to help you. A lot of the work that I do, it tends to be in the world of, I don't know this, but I also don't know that I don't know this, right? In the world of business ownership, there's so much that you don't know. So it's really about a matter of uncovering that and making those unknown unknowns into known unknowns. So then now you can fill those gaps, right? Because if you don't know that the gap exists, you can't do anything about it. That's why my company is called Nyan Leadership, because it's about seeing. Nyan means eyes. It's also my nephew's name. If he's watching, hi Nyan. But it's about what you can see. You can only affect change or make make a difference in things that you know exist, right? At least intentionally. So start widening your awareness, build your awareness around your business, around your own limitations and your own capabilities, and then play to your strengths, and then outsource your weaknesses. That's the way that these big players make it, right? That's how these big companies get formed. Yeah, for a while they do whatever they need to do, right? Themselves, they're in there, they're scrappy, they have that minimal, streamlined life. But if you think about when these companies started, like Amazon, like Dell, all these Microsoft, all these amazing companies that started that are at nothing and are now like massive successes. And 80s and 90s, like you didn't need to have a fancy website. You didn't need to have a whole lot going on. Nowadays, it's like there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more to think about. I mean, SEO wasn't a thing in 1999, right? Amazon started as just a book selling website. That's all they did. They allowed, and they didn't even sell books themselves. They allowed students to sell books to each other, right? And then it just grew from there. So back then there was no SEO. There's no thought about, like, Google wasn't even a thing until 2000 ish, right? So think about all that's changed between now and then. The mentality has largely stayed the same, but it's a matter of there's a lot more things to spend the money on, a lot more areas of expertise that we don't have as business owners that we need to be able to outsource, or be willing to outsource, be willing to invest in order to be successful, in order to have that next level of success that we want to have. Because ultimately you're going to be limiting yourself, and you don't want to do that. The last thing you want to do is look back and be like, oh, damn, I should have X, or I could have done X, right? Because you don't want to say that you held yourself back because you were scared, because you're scared of running out of money, or scared of failing, or whatever. Failure is a real fear. So is running out of money. Absolutely. Those are reality things, right? But if you operate your whole life out of just fear, you're not going to get anything done. So think about where you can start investing your money more smartly, whether not just stocks and investments in terms of like real estate or those kind of things, but in terms of your business. Where can you put money in your business that will give you that return you're looking for? How can you effectively scale your business? Because that's really what you're doing, right? It's scaling on a micro level. You're not scaling now in terms of long-term scaling, in terms of like growing your business that way. You're growing your business in terms of, I'm getting partners in place or vendors in place that allow me to maximize my time. That's really what scaling is making the most out of your time, right? Because you're getting, when you scale your business and grow and add people on, now you have, instead of 1 hour you're getting billed for, you're getting billed for your hour plus someone else's hour. That's scaling. So if you hire a vendor before you even get to hire someone else on, if you bring a vendor on to do the work you need to get done on a website or on the things you need to get done in your business that you're not able to do yourself effectively, you're scaling your time because they're working on that while you're doing your actual work, right? Think about how much more productive you can be if you free up your time like that. Going back to my story, when I built my website this time, I didn't build it myself. I hired someone to build it. And I cannot tell you how good it felt to have that not over my head, to have the feeling of like, okay, well, this is great that I can actually focus on my business and not have to worry about stuff. And this guy over there, he's building my website. It looks great. I'm checking in with him, making sure it's good to go, obviously, but I don't have to be involved in that on a day-to-day basis and actually physically build it. All right, we got a question from the audience. All right, Kendria, thanks for tuning in again. So would you say that there are some things that could be outsourced sooner than later by small business owners that can end up costing them more in the long run? Absolutely. Yeah, great question. So one of many things. There's a lot of things. One is going to be Kendria speaking up because she's in the financial services realm. Anything in financial services, right? CPA, bookkeeping, payroll, if you have that, but forget payroll for the beginning because you're probably not going to have payroll in the very beginning, right? But CPA and bookkeeping, that's where, why do I say death and taxes are the two things that you can't run away from? Because taxes are a pain in the butt, all right? And it behooves you to have someone who knows what the hell they're doing, right? It behooves you to have clean books in case something happens, or in case the IRS decides, hey, you know what, I'm bored, let me go audit that guy over there. That's not how it works. But you want to be able to outsource things that matter more. So to Kendria's point, financial services are things you probably want to outsource sooner than later. TurboTax is great, but for business owners, it kind of sucks, honestly. As an individual, yeah, TurboTax does a great job, but there's a lot of things that my CPA told me that I didn't even know existed for small business owners, right? So you need someone who can customize their advice for you specifically in your situation. Bookkeeping is the same idea, right? Websites, same idea. You want someone who's gonna be able to customize your website to your customers, your preferences and your business itself. Because if you're not able to do that, you don't want some generic thing out there. There's no one size fits all solution for every business owner, right? That's the ultimate thing that people think they want the magic bullet, right? I think nowadays, if anything, if ever before, we're so impatient and so like we just want everything now, right away. We want the instant fix, right? We don't want to wait. We don't want to work for anything. We want it immediately, right? We feel so entitled. And so we got to understand that that's not the way things work, right? We have to understand that things are going to work iteratively. And that's one of the things we want to be able to do with our business is say, okay, who do we want to bring on? Not to hire them, but in terms of hiring, like paying someone for a fee as a vendor, bring them on so they can maximize your time, right? So you can make sure you get your work done effectively, right? So financial services, technology services. Again, if you're in those areas, you do them yourself, that's totally fine. By all means, do your own books. If you're a CPA, if you're a bookkeeper yourself, that's great. You can do that yourself, right? But if you're not, hire someone to do that for you. If you don't know enough about it to be able to do it and be able to give someone else advice on it, maybe that's the test you should look at. If you're not, and you have to be honest about this because a lot of people give advice and it's really shitty advice. If you can actually give people competent advice about a particular area, then maybe you can do that yourself. But unless you feel confident giving someone else that advice, another business owner, that advice about a particular area, don't do it yourself. Hire someone to do that for you because that's going to free up your time. It's going to make sure things get done right as well. Because again, especially financials, you don't want to spend time having to clean up your financials. Let's forget the audit for a second. The audit's worst case scenario. But let's say you don't know how much you're making on a day-to-day basis, right? If you can't tell how much you're making, if you can't tell yourself, you can't tell anyone if you're winning or losing at this point, right? If you're in the black or if you're in the red, you don't know. So you don't actually know if you're making an investment or if you're getting a return on the investment for things you've put money into. So you want to be able to have those kind of insights into your business. Marketing is the same thing, right? If you don't know enough about marketing to be able to articulate to someone else why they need to be doing something or how to do something, then hire someone to do marketing for you. And marketing is a very wide area. You can know a lot about a very niche area and then still need help in another area. And that's also totally fine. The good ones are going to be able to differentiate their services that way. But seek out things that you don't have the expertise on. And we can go through and talk about the actual list of things that need to get done. But if you don't invest in those things earlier than later, like financials, like your website, like your marketing, you can end up spending a lot of money, and in that case, wasting a lot of money later on those things because they will come back to bite you in the butt. And would you rather spend 30 minutes a day over time to work with your bookkeeper or figure out what's making sense in your financials? Or would you like to spend 40 hours at once in one big block cleaning up your books when you got to figure out what to do at that point? Which one makes more sense, right? That's the case it's going to be. It's going to be a cleanup thing down the road, or it's going to be creating those habits right now that make sense. And thanks for asking the question, Kendra. But that's the easy. I mean, financials are the easiest answer for that, right? I would start with financials, and depending on what industry you're in, what industry your business is in, you might be able to start different things. Like I said, you could, if your industry is already in financial services and you know how to do that, great. Take that over, get that stuff done, build those habits into your business. But then figure out what workflows you need. Figure out who do you need to reach out to find out, what makes sense. Business insurance is another big one, right? That's a huge one. A lot of people don't even realize that they need a business insurance. Oh, I'm just a solopreneur. Why do I need business insurance? Well, you don't need it till you need it. So the insurance is in case shit happens, and you don't want to find out when shit happens. You don't have insurance, because that's a perfect example. Like Andrea asked about things that will cost you more in the long run. That will cost you more in the long run. Absolutely. If you happen to get sued for any reason, we live in a litigious society. All right. If someone sues you, even for some stupid stuff, and you don't have the insurance you need, that's an easy situation where you will end up paying out God knows how much for ridiculous stuff sometimes. So think about things you might need for yourself and reach out to folks. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions of other business owners in your network, or reach out to me, for God's sake. I mean, hey, what are some things that you want to do? What are some things that you want to make sure you have in case you're starting a business of X kind? right? This is all relatively generic that I'm talking about right now. But if you have a specific situation that comes up that you want to discuss, reach out to me. Let's talk about it, because not every business is exactly the same. Some businesses need some things more than others, right? There's some businesses where you don't necessarily need a website, right? A Google My Business page is enough, right? There's some businesses where you don't need, to have a lot of marketing done, because word of mouth might be enough. You might be doing all your marketing through word of mouth and it's working great for you, right? But there's some businesses where you need all of the above, especially new businesses starting today. In order to actually have a footprint out there, if you're starting one from scratch, that's a really tough thing to jump into depending on what market you're in. So you want to be able to actually make an impression and do business and be successful. The last thing you want to do is invest your time, energy, hopes and dreams and money in something, in an idea, in a business that doesn't take off because you could have done things differently, right? So think about things from that perspective. My buddy Justin was asking the question about this tonight, that I'm talking about this today. So, as an expert in one area, you don't have to be an expert in all the areas. That's the summary of what I'm saying tonight. Reach out, ask for help, find out who the great vendors are. Always interview a couple different vendors, unless you have a connection from someone who you really know and trust, and they have someone that they know and trust. Those are great connections to make, right? But always, if you're going off of Angie's List or Home Advisor or Google or Yelp or that kind of things, always interview a couple different people, right? Don't just go off of what one Google review says. So that's probably the best advice I can give you in that situation. But just look at areas in your business where you can outsource. Look at areas where you don't have the expertise to fill that gap that's needed for the business, because I guarantee you there's at least one, probably many more, but there's at least one area where you need help. If that involves training, great. You can do it yourself still, that's fine. But if that involves bringing a consultant in for some reason to do that kind of work for you, whether it's a marketing consultant, web consultant, technology in general. I just worked with one of my clients earlier today to help her figure out some stuff on technology side of things. Not really the coaching industry, but I know enough to be dangerous there, so I can help her with that on a limited level. It wasn't anything deep dive, so I helped her with that. But if it was deeper, I would refer to an actual IT consultant, right? So think about that from your perspective, right? What are some questions that you have about this kind of thing? What are some areas where you need help? Reach out to those folks, have those conversations, get those gaps in your business filled, because you're going to limit yourself if you don't, right? You may not feel it right away, but eventually you will feel that bottleneck creeping up on you. And then you just don't want it to be too late, where to the point where you end up losing clients, or you end up losing business, or you end up getting hurt overall. So that's the talk for tonight. We're almost at 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it a little short tonight, even out the other times where we've gone over time. So if you have questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. But if not, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, and share. And yes, Andrew, thanks for tuning in, man. Build your brand slowly over time. Learn who you can bring to the next deal. 100%. Absolutely. You build your network as a business owner. Small business owners, our networks are our lifeblood, honestly, because you get referrals through them, you get connections, you get to have conversations about things like this, and you just get to be part of a really cool community. I mean, for the most part, there's still some douchebags out there, don't get me wrong, but the small business community is pretty cool overall, honestly. I mean, we support each other. We try to do that as much as possible. And if you get a good group of people you know and trust, who have the abundance mentality, who have the like-minded mindset that you do, and that have the growth mindset that will help you and want to grow with you and help you grow, those are people that you want to hold on to, right? Even if you're not in the same industry, even if it doesn't make sense to actually do business with them otherwise, like if you're not natural referral partners, who cares? They're good people. You guys can still bounce ideas off of each other, right? It also helps to have a different perspective sometimes. So keep those people in your network. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, if you like the video, hit like, hit subscribe, share the video with folks who this matters to. And we'll talk again next week. We are doing another live stream later this week with who we're talking to today. Let's see. Neil Wainwright, actually, great guy, really cool guy. He is a startup consultant, aka also a startup CEO based out of Toronto. He's got a really cool startup that we'll talk about on Thursday. But tune in on Thursday at 3:00 and you get to meet him. So I'll see you guys then. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me in the meantime.